You've seen the ads. Of course you have. Some guy who looks about 22, standing next to a Lamborghini he definitely rented for the day, telling you how he cracked the code to e-commerce riches. All you gotta do is set up a store, click a few buttons, and boom, the money just starts pouring into your account while you sip a drink on a beach in Bali. Sounds pretty sweet, doesn't it? Well, let's pull back the curtain and see what's really going on. So, the dream they're selling is this picture-perfect life of push-button profits, a business that basically runs itself while you live it up. But the reality, for almost everyone who tries it, it's a brutal grind. We're talking long, long hours, getting tangled up in nightmarish logistics, and just staring at spreadsheets wondering why the numbers aren't adding up. It's way less beach and a whole lot more basement. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Here's the cold, hard number. A staggering 90%, 90, of people who jump into e-commerce fail. And it's not because they're lazy, it's because the so-called gurus sold them a fantasy, but they forgot to mention the most important part. You actually need real knowledge, a real strategy. Okay, so if that influencer playbook is just a fast track to failure, where do you find the real answers? Well, you've got to look to the OGs, the real ones. The people who've been in the trenches of Indian retail and e-commerce for decades. They've built empires, scaled them, and yeah, sometimes even lost them. They've learned the lessons the hard way, so we don't have to. Before we can even start to talk about the digital world, we have to understand the ground it was built on. So where did this whole idea of organized, large-scale retail in India even come from? Who was the first person to really figure out the Indian consumer on a massive scale? For a lot of people, the answer is this man right here, Kishore Biyani, the founder of the Future Group. You could call him the father of modern Indian retail. Long before D2C or e-commerce were even buzzwords, this guy was on the ground, in the stores, figuring out what makes the average Indian tick and what makes them buy. His story is basically a masterclass. And this quote, wow, this tells you everything you need to know. This is not some fluffy success story from an online course. This is the raw, unfiltered truth of playing in the big leagues. Biyani's journey was about massive, incredible creation, followed by equally massive destruction. It's a huge lesson that in a market as wild as India, the highs are high and the lows are really low. So after decades in the game, what was one of his biggest takeaways? It's actually deceptively simple. You cannot just take a business model that worked in America or Europe, copy-paste it into India, and expect to win. It's probably the single biggest mistake that so many companies, both foreign and Indian, continue to make. This quote from him just nails it. He's basically saying, look, even I, a retail master, messed up by trying to think about digital from an old-school physical-first perspective. He says you have to be born digital to really truly get it. But even more important is this idea that localization isn't just a nice-to-have. It's everything. It's the only way. You have to build for India from within India. All right, so if localization is the key, that leads to the big question. Who exactly are we localizing for? This is where we get to the heart of the matter. The biggest mistake, and also the biggest opportunity, is in really understanding who the Indian consumer is. Because let me tell you, it is not one single person. And this right here is probably one of the most brilliant frameworks ever created for understanding this market. Biyani breaks it down into 3 separate Indias. You've got India 1, which is the top-tier consuming class. Then there's India 2, the serving class. Think drivers, domestic help, the people who support India 1's lifestyle. And finally, India 3, the enormous population that relies on agriculture and government support. 3 totally different worlds. Now get this. All those fancy international brands, all those premium startups, they're almost all fighting over India 1. But how big is that group? It's only about 11 to 13% of the whole country. Think about that. Almost everyone is battling for a tiny slice of the pie, while mostly ignoring the gigantic opportunities sitting in India 2 and 3. Okay, so understanding who is step 1. But the real secret sauce is figuring out step 2, the psychology. What are the deep down emotional triggers that make someone, anyone in India, actually click that buy now button? Because trust me, it's not just about what they need anymore. The folks on the WTF is e-commerce podcast broke this down perfectly. First off, social media has weaponized FOMO, the fear of missing out. People see something trending and they feel this crazy urge to be a part of it, right now. Second, it's all about aspiration. It's not about what a product does, it's about how it makes you look, how it makes you feel different. Third, trust has totally shifted. Forget big movie stars, people now trust smaller, micro-influencers who feel more real. And last, people aren't discovering products together on TV anymore. It's a super personal, individual journey that happens on their phone. So, we have the wisdom from the OGs. We have a better picture of the consumer. We know we need to localize and play into these new psychological triggers. But here's the problem. There's a massive gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it. This is what we call the modern execution gap. And this is the question that just paralyzes so many entrepreneurs. You've got the vision, you've listened to the podcasts, you've read the books, you're inspired by the OGs. But how in the world do you take that big, beautiful strategy and turn it into a real, functioning, day-to-day business that actually grows? Because for most companies, the reality looks something like this: a total mess, a puzzle where none of the pieces fit. You have one person doing your website, a freelancer doing social media, another guy running ads, and none of them are talking to each other. It's not a system. It's just pure, unadulterated chaos. I absolutely love this phrase because it is so painfully accurate. That's what so many modern businesses are, an attempt at duct taping 5 different freelancers together and then just, hoping for the best. It's a guaranteed recipe for disaster, wasted money, and a strategy that just stays on paper. And this quote just brings it all home. All that amazing OG wisdom we talked about, it's just a daydream if you can't execute. And that duct tape team of freelancers, that's the nightmare. You gotta have both, a great strategy and a seamless way to execute it. They have to work together. So, if the problem is a fragmented, chaotic approach, then the solution has to be a systemic one. It's about getting away from hiring a bunch of separate people to do tasks and instead building a single, cohesive growth engine. But what does that actually look like? So let's look at one potential model for what this solution could be. Using a company called Nexgen Elit as an example. Their entire idea is built on a change in mindset. They say don't hire an agency to do a task, find a growth partner who helps you build the whole system from the ground up. And here's how they frame the difference. You know the typical agency problem, right? They overpromise, then hand your account to a junior person. They sell you a bunch of complicated tools you don't need. The alternative model is the opposite. Underpromise and overdeliver. Have senior people actually leading your project. And stop selling tools, sell outcomes, sell results. It's a total shift. And what's really cool about a systemic approach is how you can directly map the solutions back to the big challenges we talked about. Remember the OG wisdom to think digital first? Well, a growth partner answers that with things like AI native development. The challenge is to scale intelligently. The solution is building the right back-end systems and automation. The challenge is winning over that modern consumer. The solution is to deeply integrate your growth strategy with your marketing. Every single action is a direct answer to a real strategic need. And the other part of the system is just bringing clarity to the process, replacing the chaos with a clear, transparent plan. Any true partner should have a simple, structured process. It usually starts with just listening, a discovery call, and then lays out a super detailed plan so there are no surprises. This kind of systematic approach is designed to build trust and make sure that brilliant strategy actually happens, without all the usual headaches. So, really, it all comes down to this one final question you have to ask yourself, after hearing the hard-won wisdom from the OGs and seeing what a real system looks like. Is your business currently running on luck and duct tape? Or is it a finely tuned engine, actually built to scale in the tough, complicated, but incredibly rewarding Indian market? The choice, really, is yours.